Welcome to New Independence Network. We are back once again. That sound that you hear are the Democrats dancing on the graves of the victims of the shooting at Mandalay Bay before their bodies are even cold. That is exactly right. This is what the left does. They can't even give the families a second to grieve. They can't even allow for the pulse to stop in the body after it has been shot before they take to Twitter and take to the airwaves and scream and cry, gun control. You knew what was going to happen, and they don't even have the facts of the case. That's their knee-jerk reaction to everything. Hillary Clinton, the old crone Hillary, she's lost her mind. Is it just me, or are all of the women on the left insane? I mean, women have some emotional issues as it is, as a rule. I mean, we know this. They're quite emotional, most of them. But the ones on the left are absolutely unhinged. Nancy Pelosi doesn't know if Donald Trump or George Bush is president, and she can't speak without slurring her words. Maxine Waters is calling for Trump's impeachment every day about something new. Today he put on the wrong colored socks and she wants him impeached. Elizabeth Warren Pocahontas, she freaks out about Donald Trump for every day about something and has no clue what she's talking about. She makes no sense and is completely hypocritical. She wants everything for free, but she makes $350,000 to teach one class. And Hillary Clinton today, I mean, this morning, she wrote, "The crowd fled at the sound of gunshots. Imagine the deaths if the shooter had a silencer which the NRA wants to make easier to get." Seriously, that's your second tweet today. The first tweet was the grieving of the family in Vegas. We'll feel sorry for the family in Vegas. Now that I got that out of the way, her tweet was, Las Vegas, we are grieving with you, the victims, those who lost loved ones, the responders, and all affected by this cold-blooded massacre. And now that we got that out of the way, let's talk terms now. Let's talk turkey. NRA wants them to get silencers. It's easier to get. The next tweet right after that, all within the same hour. Our grief isn't enough. We can and must put politics aside, stand up to the NRA, and work together to stop this from happening again. How do you put politics aside if you're already injecting politics into the situation? You moron! Hillary Clinton, you are an evil, horrible person. You are an absolute disgrace of a human being. Perhaps if you want to talk gun control, perhaps you can talk to the family of Vince Foster, who was killed, but not by the Clintons, though. He was shot, but not by the Clintons, though. No. They had nothing to do with the death of Vince Foster. Right, Hillary? Or is it gun control only matters to those who you're not trying to kill? Allegedly. Think about that. The Democrats, the left, they are absolutely sick in the head. They're sick. I mean, they're legitimately sick and need to be committed. And this leads to the point today about the shooter. We don't know his affiliation. We don't have all of the facts yet. If he were a right-wing NRA guy, if he were, the left would be all over it. They'd know it already. All the facts would be out. Right away. I mean, immediately. It would be, he's a right-winger, he supported Trump, a member of the NRA. They would be all over it. Believe me, because that fits their narrative. The fact that they haven't said anything yet, that they haven't knee-jerked into that, means that he's not a right-winger. But shortly thereafter, this morning, the Islamic State came out and said that the shooter, last name Paddock. I'm not going to give this scumbag any credit. Piece of garbage. But they said he converted to Islam a few months ago. Now, there's no proof to that. AP, of course, tweeted that and said, Islamic State claims that the shooter converted to Islam a few months ago, but they've offered no proof for that. Interestingly enough, the AP wants proof when it doesn't fit their narrative. If someone came out and said, some random source said that he was a Republican or a conservative or a Tea Party guy or a member of the NRA, they would have reported it as gospel without proof. But of course, it doesn't fit their narrative. God forbid he be a Muslim and take on a terrorist act. Now they need proof. Have to have proof now. Well, that's fine. That's what we always like to wait for, is the proof. And when the proof comes out in the majority of these shootings, the vast majority of them, they're left-wing. Left-wing or Islamic. It's just been a proven fact. The left are unhinged. They're absolutely insane. I mean, the shooter of Stephen Scalise was what? Everyone says, he was a right-winger. No. The shooter of Stephen Scalise was Rachel Maddow. He worshipped Rachel Maddow. He was a Bernie backer. He was an absolute left-wing kook. How about that? You see, and this leads to the point that I'm trying to make here. Was the shooter at Vegas insane? Oh, clearly. Clearly. I think the number now is up to 54 dead, something along those lines. 54 dead at this moment, 415 wounded. It's disgraceful. But let's look at some interesting information here, okay? From photos, Paddock appears to be white. Fine. It is what it is. That has no bearings on the case whatsoever. If he's Islamic, if he switched over to Islam, then okay, that has bearings on the case. But crazy doesn't have a color. Crazy does not have a religion. Well, Islamic religion, they're pretty crazy. On the whole, they're pretty insane. But it doesn't have a defined religion, but definitely doesn't have a color. Anybody can go crazy. It doesn't take much. All it takes, as the Joker said in The Dark Knight, a little push. Well, where does that little push come from? That little push comes from the constant barrage of the left-wing media. Oh, but aren't you... Oh, you're blaming the left wing. Well, let me explain. It's not just the left wing, but it's predominantly the left wing. And here's my explanation for that. Of the media sources, Fox, CNN, MSNBC, Washington Post, ABC, NBC, CBS, NPR, Huffington Post, of those sources, which ones of those are perpetuating doom and gloom, hate-mongering, and fear-mongering, and have been doing so through the last 6 years of George W. Bush, and perpetually, every day since Donald Trump got the nomination for president in the 2016 race. All of the left-wing sources have been. It's been constant barrage every day of fear, and Trump is going to, he has nuclear codes, he's going to destroy this country, he's in league with Russia, he wants to destroy the United States, he wants to take away your freedoms, he's a neo-Nazi, he's a racist. It's been constant, it's been perpetual. So is it any wonder that if you have a person who's mentally unstable already, and they're logging into Twitter, or logging into Facebook, or turning on 24-hour news, and you have pundits and reporters spewing the same garbage over and over again and perpetuating the same lies over and over again, is it any wonder that that person who is already mentally unstable would be pushed over the edge? no, it's no wonder to me it doesn't take that much. If you have a person who's mentally stable, they can be pushed to the level of crazy with the barrage of this garbage that comes out. But a mentally unstable person, they can lose their minds. Lose their minds. Very easily. And the thing is Twitter is accessible to everybody. And when you go to Twitter, the garbage that is on Twitter, the garbage that people spew, they will get onto Twitter. People will say things on there just to say them. And they don't care. You can't rationalize with them. They don't even want to be rationalized with. The common response is, you're a racist, you're a neo-Nazi, you don't care about the country, or, oh, well, you're wrong and I'm right. And they don't care how many facts you give them. And really, Twitter does not allow you to give a lot of facts because you're only allowed 140 characters. They're trying to increase it to 280, which I actually kind of like. But it still doesn't give you enough room to formulate a coherent argument. But there's no point in even trying to rationalize with these kooks on Twitter. There's no point. These are knee-jerk morons. I've always said that the world is not any dumber or more crazy than it was 20 years ago. It's just that now the crazies and the morons have an outlet to let us know how crazy and stupid they are. And that is Twitter, that is Facebook, that is social media. And Facebook and Twitter, they've become tools of the left. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg, it's already been proven that he is colluded with Russia. They sold ads to Russia, so Russia could work against the Republicans. What? Well, if you look at the news feed in the recommended stories, the top stories, trending, I think it was, in Facebook, they're predominantly left-wing stories. And it was already shown before that the people in Facebook, the staff, they tailor the trending stories to be toward the left-leaning stories. Well, is there any wonder that you lose your mind? You go in there and you log in, you're just trying to see what your friends are doing on Facebook or whatever. And you look to your right and there's a trending story. Donald Trump wants to destroy the country. Neo-Nazis. Whatever. This is what Facebook does. They have the monopoly on media, on information. The media itself became... It was always kind of, in the past, the media was always kind of, you weren't sure. We all kind of knew they were left-wing, but they at least tried to pretend to keep it balanced. At least they tried. It was still there, but, they did a nice job masking it. It's like the girl you date at first who is really absolutely crazy, and then for the first, 3-4 months, she hides it pretty well. Then the crazy comes out. That's what the media was like for quite some time. But all it took was that little push for their crazy to come out, for them to reveal their true colors. And that little push started with Rush Limbaugh in 1988. Now we have talk radio, conservative talk radio, and that opened up the floodgates. And they would yell about Rush Limbaugh and say, we need equal time. You have to have liberals on your show, or left-wing on your show, to discuss our point of view. And Rush Limbaugh would always say, and I agree, I am equal time. You own every other media source out there. You own the flow of information. Now it's my turn to give it from the right-leaning perspective, which is accurate, which is correct. And the media, when they used to mask their liberalism, their flaming liberalism, which was always there. I mean, looking at just on TV the other day, I was watching All the President's Men was on again, so I figured I'd give it a look-see. And knowing what we know now, this wasn't just two journalists, Woodward and Bernstein, who were trying to get a story. They would not have been this aggressive and tenacious if it was a Democrat president. But because it was Nixon, they went out of their way to ensure that they brought down Nixon. That was their objective. And they portray it in the film as, Ben Bradley wants to be authentic, and he wanted to make sure that it was legitimate, and they had two sources and corroborating evidence. And it was all designed to bring down Nixon. It wasn't. There was still a little bit of journalism in there. At least they tried to confirm some sources in real life. But the fact of the matter is if it was a Democrat president, they wouldn't have done a thing about it. I mean, how they glossed over John F. Kennedy for years and his infidelity. John F. Kennedy was not a great president in any way, shape, or form, but they painted him off to be Camelot. This is what they do. This is what they did. And back in those early days, you would have a very limited amount of news. You would get your news at 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 in the morning when you were getting ready to go to work. Then you'd have news again at 12. Then you'd have news again at 6. And that was really about it. Well, then you had your 11 o'clock. And your national news was 6 and 11. During the day, it was predominantly local news. The local news stations would come on. And only time that the national news would break in around 3 o'clock or whenever it needed to be done was if something major happened, like the Challenger exploding in 1986 or Ronald Reagan being shot in 1981. Then they would jump in with big breaking news. And they'd bump all of the soap operas and game shows or whatever it was. That's the only time you heard from the national news. And on the radio, it was news radio. You had some news radio stations, but you didn't have a whole lot of talk radio. You had NPR. But there wasn't a lot of news. And then your newspapers were a morning newspaper and then the evening edition. That was it. That's why when you're on watching old movies, for you millennials who don't remember this, or weren't alive then, of course, they say, stop the presses. That was because they had to get the news out. Change the news layout, the paper, the layout, and get that story in there before they printed it to go to the evening edition or the morning edition. A breaking story came in, they had to change everything. That's all you had. You were very limited. And in between, you just lived your life. Life was normal. You did what you had to do. You went to work, you went to school, you did your job. You came home, you watched a little bit of news, watched your TV shows, watched a little more news, watched Johnny Carson, went to bed. That's what life was like 20 years ago, 30 years ago. But then the advent of 24-hour news came. Ted Turner created CNN in the middle of the 80s. And CNN took root. And now you have news all the time. Constant news. Now, CNN started as an actual news station. It reported news. It was pretty boring, but it reported news. But still, there's going to be a leftward slant. It was not the propaganda machine that it is now, that it has become. Back then, it was pretty much legitimate news with a leftward slant. Then Fox News came on the table. Now, Rush Limbaugh came on in 1988 for talk radio, but then Fox News came on the stage, or came on the scene, and I think it was 96. And that changed the entire game. Because now you had a station that was reporting, as they called it, fair and balanced news, but there's a bit of a rightward slant to a lot of it. They're reporting news, yes. There's a little bit of a rightward slant to it, yes, without a doubt. No questions asked. But it seems more of a rightward slant because the other networks are an incredibly hard leftward slant. That's the only reason. Fox News, if you watch not the Hannity shows, not the opinion shows, Hannity, Ingram, that's coming October 30th, others, if you watch the actual news shows and discussion shows, you would say this is actually a news reporting network. If you did not have to juxtapose it with the hard leftward slant, the obvious, an overt leftward slant of the CNNs and MSNBCs. MSNBC is not even a news station. That's just a pure propaganda station. That's all that is. That's all that is. It's just news entertainment, if you want to call it that. But there's no news there. CNN is trying to be news, but they're not going to be because everything there is tainted. And it made Fox look even more right, even though they're being more balanced. So, once Fox hit the ground running, and the ratings were huge, the left lost their minds. How could you do that? We're losing our corner on the market. What are we supposed to do? What do we do now? Fox is taking everything. So they say, what are we going to do? Well, instead of actually trying to be balanced, trying to balance things out and pull some of Fox's market share away from them, they flipped entirely to the left even further. And then it became a constant 24-hour siege of negative news. And with Trump, I've never seen it this bad in my entire life. I've never seen it. It's been a constant drumbeat to take down Trump every single day. They have tried dozens. We're talking 20, 30, 40 different stories, angles, lies to try to bring down Trump. And at the same time to try to destroy this country in the process. Because these are left-wingers who hate America. America in the way it currently is. They hate the Constitution. Yet they hide behind the Constitution and declare free press and freedom of speech. But they hate that very same Constitution. And when you're constantly berating the country, and you're constantly berating the president, and you're not working in any way to unify the country or to educationally inform them and accurately inform them, and it's doom and gloom, and it's crisis after crisis after crisis, you are going to send people over the edge. Lives in general are difficult. People have to live every single day and go through their own personal chaos in life. Sick kids, sick family, sick pets, mortgage payments, bills, jobs, work, stress, health issues, a litany of issues. Add to that the constant drumbeat of fear, chaos, disorder, and distress that the media, predominantly the left-wing media, levies upon these people. Is it any wonder that someone is going to lose their minds? Is it any wonder? And if this clown, this jackass who shot up Vegas was a Muslim, is there any wonder why he would have been easy to recruit by the Muslims? By the Islamic State? The media has been praising Islam. Obama praised Islam for 8 years. These are the same people who destroyed the World Trade Center and killed 4,000 Americans who were just going to work, just traveling on a plane. Men, women, children alike. They didn't care what the race, creed, or color were. They killed everybody. And Obama praised them. He was elected in 2008. That was only 7 years after 9/11 happened. And all of a sudden we have an Islamic propagandist just happens to ascend to the presidency a mere short years after. Now, mere 7 years after. I mean, if you stop back and remember, there was a quote. It's funny because I can't find the quote online anymore, interestingly enough, but it was also before social networking was huge. Back around 2003, I remember a news report about a member of Al-Qaeda saying that they are going to, quote, we are going to attack the United States government at its highest levels. That was the quote. I remember the quote because I went, well, how are you going to do that? Lots of luck. Well, that was like 2002, 2003, right? All of a sudden, 2004, at the Democrat National Convention, a young Barack Obama takes the stage. Interestingly enough, well-spoken, young African-American male. And very quickly thereafter, a mere 4 years later, he was just a state senator in Chicago. And in 4 years, that fast, he is elected president of the United States. Coincidence? And he praises Islam. And all of a sudden, we went from a country who was trying to defend itself from radical Islamic terrorism to a country that is defending Islam, praising Islam, saying Islam is responsible for creating this country, giving $150 billion to Iran, a terrorist state and supporter of radical Islam, of radical Islamic terrorism, reaching out to socialist dictatorships like Venezuela and Cuba, causing disorder in Syria and Libya, taking down leaders, helping to take down leaders in those countries who we pretty much had at bay. But now those countries became under the control of the Islamic State or the Muslim Brotherhood. Think about that. When you have a president for 8 years who is praising Islam and condemning the country, the United States, you don't think that's going to have some influence on people who are a little unstable or lost? With an 8-year positive propaganda push for that, it's no wonder people are being more easily recruited by the Islamic State. It's no wonder. It doesn't surprise me when they're constantly receiving a drumbeat that the country is so terrible and the United States is so terrible and democracy is so terrible that the radical Islamic lunatics reach out across social media in anonymity and contact these people in private and say, would you like to come and be part of the Islamic State? We could do great things for you. Your country is falling apart. And these people go, you know what? This country is falling apart. Obama's been saying that for 8 years. Democrats say country's a living hell. They don't love this country at all. Why should I love this country either? I'm going to join radical Islam. And then I'm going to kill Americans. And when he shot the Americans, interestingly enough, what was happening? What kind of concert was being held? It was a Jason Aldean concert. And there were other country acts there as well. So you had what? Who was your primary predominant audience in a country music concert? Conservatives, Republicans, people who love this country. The people who the left wants you to believe only want to get guns and want to support neo-Nazis. That's what they make you. They want you to think that. Everyone in the South is a racist. That's what the media, that's what the left-wing media want you to believe. That is what the Democrats want you to believe. That everyone in the South are Nazis. That they're all racist. Interestingly enough, as we discussed in one of my last podcasts, audiocast, that the left were the racists from the South who started the KKK. Just saying. But they want you to believe that. So when you have a concert full of people that the left has branded as racists, it wasn't a Democrat. A bunch of Democrats performed at the concert. It was predominantly Republicans. And they were shot up. It's no wonder the Democrats are dancing on the graves of those who died. Because they're just the graves of Republicans, predominantly. They don't care. This is what we have in this country. This is how sick the left has become. And because of this constant drumbeat, because of the left-wing media, because of the social media and the unstable crazies that are on the web who are spreading lies, you're going to push others over the edge. And there's your shooting. And you're going to see it's going to get worse before it gets better. They're already calling for gun control, gun control. They don't understand a thing about guns and weapons. Let me give you a quick history on weapons. Real brief. They say an assault rifle. That's a common term the left uses. Assault rifle. Or assault weapon. It's an assault weapon. Every weapon is an assault weapon. If I hit you with a bat, I have assaulted you with a bat. Therefore, it is an assault weapon. Then they say assault rifle. It's an assault rifle. The AR-15, it's assault rifle. AR does not stand for assault rifle. AR is the abbreviation for the manufacturer of the weapon. It's that simple. The AR-15 is, and the thing is, the AR-15 is not even an automatic weapon. They say, well, we have to ban semi-automatic weapons. Every weapon is a semi-automatic weapon. What defines semi-automatic? Semi-automatic is if you pull the trigger, shoot a round, and another round chambers automatically. That's semi-automatic. You shoot, another round chambers. That's it. That's how it works. You want to go back to musket and gunpowder, ball and musket fire, then you don't have to worry about the round chambering right away. But as it stands, you have a 9mm. If you have a revolver, you shoot, the other round's ready to go. Simple. Same happens with an AR-15. Same happens with an M16A2 in the military. Or an M14 carbine. Or an M4 carbine, I'm sorry. And those weapons, the M16, the M4, they have three settings: safe, fire, and burst. There used to be in the M16A1s, back when I was in the military, the M16A1s had safe, fire, and auto. They were an automatic weapon. Not a semi, an automatic weapon, which means you pull the trigger and several rounds come out. Regular fire, semi-automatic, pop, pop, pop. Automatic, trigger, pop, 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 without letting go of the trigger. Simple. They changed those because, honestly, the troops were expending a lot of ammo in combat situations by firing auto. And they said, you know what, that's actually not good strategically, and they changed it to a 3-round burst. So you pull the trigger and pop, pop, pop. That's most you get is 3. And that's on an M16 and I believe the M14 or the M4 carbine. Because the M4 or the M14 was a Vietnam weapon, and that was automatic before the M16s came on board. I believe I'm getting this all right. I know historically of the weapons, that might be, I might not have it exactly 100% right, but I have how the weapons work accurate. Then there's the M60 machine gun. It was the 60 because it was basically created in 1960. See Rambo, if you ever watched Rambo movies, that's the weapons, that's the machine gun that Rambo fired, is the M60 machine gun. I used to be an M60 gunner when I was training in the military. And it's a heavy 25-pound monster of a weapon, but it's a great suppressive fire weapon. That is a fully automatic, shoots a 7.62 millimeter round. The other weapons shoot a 5.56, considerably smaller. The M60, and then there's a 240 Gulf, which I don't even know if they still use that, but I was fielding that when I was in the Army before I left. The M240 Gulf is also a fully automatic weapon. Hold the trigger, fire off a chain of rounds. No questions asked. They're illegal to purchase. They're illegal because they're an automatic fire weapon. The squad automatic weapon is the same thing. It's a machine gun that shoots 5.56 millimeter rounds. It's not a suppressive fire weapon for the most part, but it's still an automatic weapon. So there are only semi-automatic weapons available. That's it. That's all you're allowed to have. And every weapon is an assault weapon, no matter what the weapon is. If you assault somebody with it, it's an assault weapon. But these are all buzzwords that the left like to use. And the AR-15 is not an assault rifle. But they want you to think that. It's not considered an assault. AR doesn't stand for assault rifle. Again, these are just buzzwords from people who don't have a clue about guns. They have no clue. Hillary Clinton saying that the new push is, oh, we have to stop the people from getting the silencers for the weapons, the noise suppressors. If you've ever fired a silencer, you would know that the movies are a bunch of BS. When you hear somebody shooting a weapon, like in Goodfellas, Joe Pesci puts a silencer on his weapon and shoots Stax in the back of the head. The guy who was driving the truck, Samuel L. Jackson's character, shoots him in the back of the head, and you hear a little muffled thump, thump, thump. That's not how it sounds. A silencer just reduces the sound of the shot, so you won't have to wear headphones when you shoot, because guns are incredibly loud. If you put a silencer on there, it's still loud. It just reduces the sound a little bit. But everyone can still hear it. It's still a pop. It's not muffled like the movies make it sound. But the left doesn't know that. And they don't care to know that. And they're going to dance on the graves of the dead. Families don't even have a chance to grieve. And they're going to try to perpetuate gun control right away. Knee-jerk reaction without the facts. Here's the question that you have to answer. We have to ask. And that need to be answered. How did this man get an automatic weapon? Number one, how did he get an automatic weapon? I thought automatic weapons were illegal. The media, the left always says we have to ban weapons so people won't get them. But if we've already banned them, 1986 they banned automatic weapons. Fully auto, banned, 1986. How did he get an automatic weapon? If it was banned. If it was banned, he shouldn't be able to access it. But he got one. Also, how does a man walk into a hotel with, apparently he had 10 or 13 rifles with him? How do you walk into a hotel with 13 rifles? How big of big a bag has to be to carry 13 rifles? Now that's more possible than anything else, because you just put a suitcase on a baggage cart and bring it up to your room and no one's going to really pay attention to you because they just don't. But the fact of the matter is how? Interestingly enough, third question is, why did he choose this concert to shoot people? Was it because they were right-wing? Was it because he didn't like country music? Or was it just because he was crazy? Or was it because he was Islamic and he wanted to attack a group of people and this was his opportunity to do so? But some things are going to come out of this that I've noticed. Number one, you're going to have a lot more security at the hotels now in Vegas, as it should be anyway. They should check bags before you check in. Most likely. I guess you're going to have to do that now. They've already destroyed airports. They've already destroyed going in the stadiums. So, well, may as well destroy going in the hotels too. It is what it is. That's the world we live in, but that's the world the left wants. They love this fear. You want to keep perpetuating the fear? Congratulations. Now you're making it fearful and you're affecting it for everyone. And the first ones that are going to complain and bitch about this are going to be the left. Oh, it's terrible. Why do I have to go into this hotel and have my bags checked now? I don't know. The other thing that comes out of this I've noticed was there were a lot of first responders, police, running into danger, running into harm's way to stop this shooter. But the NFL are kneeling. Originally, they were kneeling because the cops are unjust. I thought the cops were horrible people. So why would the NFL be kneeling to protest the cops if the cops were running into harm's way? I thought that the cops were terrible. Oh, the NFL are kneeling to protest in their stadium safe zones while the cops are putting their lives on the line once again. But the spoiled NFL babies don't see that. There's a lot of issues with this. And they'll all come to fruition over time. They'll all come to the surface. We'll figure out what they are. Until then, we'll let the facts emerge. Was he Islamic? Did he convert to Islam? I don't know. Was he a right-winger? Most likely not, because if he were, the media would be talking about it already. They'd know. They'd have his entire history already. We'll see. Until that time, we'll put our prayers out to the people in Vegas, the families of the victims, those who are wounded, as the numbers keep coming in. And hopefully there are no more found dead. And hopefully there are no more found wounded. But this is still the United States of America. And we're not going to allow the left to perpetuate more and more fear. That's it for today. The New Independence Network. Thank you very much for listening to the update. And we'll be back soon.